Hello and welcome to the latest episode of our James Bond Top 100 Villains Countdown. Last time we got down to 21. Today we are going to move on to places 20 to 11. So jumping straight in, let's find out who's at number 20. It is Eric Kriegler from For Your Eyes Only. He's kind of an early 80s stamper, an interesting taste in pink shirts. There's a great fight with Bond on top of the big cliff monastery place at the end. I think his best sequence is when he's chasing Bond on a motorbike in the ski resort earlier in the movie. And I like the bit where BB says, "Hey Eric, we'll have a drink at the finish," and he's like, "Woman trying it on with me, that make me mad. Kriegler mad." But anyway, 19. We have the what I call the Inheritors of the Earth from Moonraker. Now, you might think this is a strange villain for me to put on my list, but they're definitely villainous. I mean, there's a scene where Bond's basically getting strangled by a python, and they just stand there watching and even smiling at what's going on. I don't get what the deal is with these people. I mean, what motivation would you have to go along with Drax's scheme on this? Unless they're brainwashed or blackmailed in some way. But I mean, if I was one of the best looking men in the world, I just wouldn't want to live in the Stone Age. I'd want to be one of the best looking men in the world as it is. So it's a bit bizarre. You could almost have an entire story set around these people and their motivations and what led them there, to go alongside Moonraker as a sort of companion piece. But and even their death is a mystery because we're not even sure that they die. They just sort of disappear just before the crap hits the fan. So do they get away on an escape pod, or I don't know. It's a real mystery, but I think 19's a good spot. They're definitely villains that fascinate me. Coming in at number 18, we have the Three Blind Mice from Doctor No. These are the first villains and the first people we see in the entire series right at the start of the movie. And these guys are absolutely brutal. I mean, they'll just, if they're going to assassinate someone, they'll just do it in broad daylight, no messing around. That's how they do Strangways, his secretary. When they decide to kill Bond, they just go for it in front of his hotel. There's no hiding in his room or a closet or an alleyway. They just put a gun on top of a car and try and take him out right there and then. They die in a car chase when the car that rolls down the hill. That's a really good effect. And there's even a bit of mystery in the fact that there's sort of a fourth blind mouse in one scene near the start of the film. I'm not sure where he goes to. Coming in at 17, we have a legendary villain in Erma Bunt from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Erma Bunt is a really tough, creepy villain. She has this scene where she suddenly appears in the bed of this woman Bond was hoping to sleep with, and that's a real kind of shock moment. I think in a normal Bond film, she probably would have died in the stock car rally scene where her car gets set on fire. But this being On Her Majesty's, she comes back at the end, kills Tracy, and along with Blofeld, she's part of that team of villains that won, bizarrely. I saw a fan script years ago of a sort of Diamonds Are Forever version if Lazenby had been in it and Irma Bunt had come back. And it started off with a scene where Irma Bunt is in an elevator and Bond sort of takes the trapdoor off and looks down and says, "Hello, Fraulein," and then kills her. But no, didn't get to see the sort of sequel follow-up to that, but definitely a great villain, I think. And very sad that the actress who played her actually died like a few days after the premiere. It's kind of odd, and she was only an actress in her 50s. But coming in at 16, we have Mishka and Greshka. I've left the D off the and there, but not to worry. These two always frightened me as a kid. They're just ferocious double act with their sort of knife skills. There's a terrific scene at the start of Octopussy where they're chasing like at this MI6 agent through the forest. It's really well filmed, and it's really cool how the MI6 agent gets a few hits back as well. But and then later on, one of the best scenes in Octopussy on the train. It goes on a long time, and these two guys, Mishka and Grishka, they have a few fights with Bond. But I've always really thought these villains were like completely cool, really good. 15, we have Locke from For Your Eyes Only. I believe the final villain from For Your Eyes Only, just as Mishka and Grishka were the final villain in our list from Octopussy, I believe. Locke's a completely silent villain, has quite a few confrontations with Bond, and it's just a really good battle that eventually ends with Bond kicking him off the cliff. Lots been made. I've seen a lot written about whether Bond was a little bit too savage in sort of killing a man who basically surrendered or had no choice but to surrender. But You know, he did exactly the same thing with Naomi, and nobody's really batted an eyelid about that scene from The Spy Who Loved Me. So 14, and an absolutely amazing villain in Zorin from A View to a Kill. I already talked in the Scarpine bit about the scene with the miners, which is absolutely amazing. And there's a lot of cool scenes with Zorin. He's a complete psychopath, great Bond villain, brilliantly played by Christopher Walken. I like the scene where he drops the board member off the blimp, and then comes back into the meeting that he's in and says, "So does anybody else want to drop out?" Just brilliant. At number 13, we have Alec Trevolin, and my brother might not be too happy with me with this one because he told me that he would have put Trevolin at number 1 if he was doing his own list. But for me, he just misses out on the top 10. A terrific villain, brilliant for starting off the Brosnan era. I'm not sure his motivations for being a villain are that great. I mean, if you're a really tough, well-regarded MI6 agent, I'm not sure I would be changing to villainy just for the sake of a grudge from like 50, 60 years ago, supposedly is what happened. But he gets some great action sequences, and his end in his base in Cuba, the fights he has with Brosnan, his death, it's just spectacular. Really, really good stuff. Coming in at number 12, we have Necros from The Living Daylights, and I guess I would just like to say, where's everybody gone? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Necros is one of my favourite villains from the whole series. Certainly one of my favourite henchmen. He's just... The scene where he dresses up as a milkman and infiltrates MI6 is just one of the most incredible, impressive things I've ever seen from a villain. And later on, he gets a brilliant battle with Bond on the back of this cargo net dangling out of this plane. It's just completely spectacular. It's absolutely wonderful. And finally today we have, and just before I click into number 11, I'd just like to say I am really sad that this next villain only got to number 11. It is Jaws. You know what? If it wasn't for Moonraker, I think Jaws might have won the whole competition, or certainly come in the top 2 or 3. He's a brilliant, legendary villain. In Spy Who Loved Me, he is just incredible. He's terrifying, he's tough. All of his scenes are just all classics, and he gets this incredible ending where you think he's died when Bond outsmarts him into the shark pool, and then he kills the shark with his teeth, and then just comes out of the ocean and starts swimming off into the distance as if he can just cover any amount of distance on any ocean anywhere. It's just absolutely brilliant. But Moonraker, he comes back and he's just not as good. Oh, we got a visit from the cat. Come to join me.
Gone bad.
That's okay. Well, put that back up. That's fine. So, yeah, it's completely ruined the interpretation of Jaws. But for The Spy Who Loved Me alone, he gets to number 11. But it's sort of a shame that he couldn't get into the top 10. So, thank you for that line. I just got to the end of that list, but what can you do? Okay, right. Wrong pussy. See you next time.